Good morning. Welcome
Morning.
to the Buildings Brilliance Book Club.
Woohoo!
I'm your host, Brian Wilson.
I'm Javada Hill.
We're here with another exciting episode of Building Brilliance Book Club, and now we're focused on this book, Predictably Irrational, by
Dan Ariely.
Ariely. Yes, Dan Ariely. So we just started talking about this book even before we hit the
Go button.
go button. And in that, we've come across with this interesting conversation. Like, I always ask the same questions on certain books when I read them. Like, why did he write this book? And I don't know if we have an answer for that as of yet, because he doesn't make any conclusions. I didn't see, in conclusion.
Yeah, or like takeaways. So like, what can you take away from this book? What are some of the solutions that, and is it predictable that we look for the answer? Like, predictably irrational. I think that's a little like, human beings, we have an expectation. He talks about setting up expectations inside of the conversation. And sometimes from the past, not that the past doesn't exist, but we operate from the past. Lord of mercy.
I know, but I come not prepared. It's not in the book. It's supposed to be in the book. Thank you.
Right.
He,
Predictable, like living in the, not just like living in the past, but it says create a structure for a context for your clients. Sometimes that you relate to things based upon what happened in the past. Like, you went to Starbucks and then your environment was such and such, and they say your name. Like, I do appreciate when they be like, Javita, like they try. They try, but I do appreciate like their service. And it happens. And then they say that you go to other coffee shops and you expect that same level of service, and then if they don't treat you like the other person treats you, then they automatically lower.
There's the rub. So I was a business major at Temple, and in our economics class, we talked about, in a nutshell, I'm going to say this in a nutshell, what was predictable, right? And they looked at it from an economic standpoint. So then it got us talking in this mindset of typically, what people will typically do based on some graphic models with a whole bunch of dots and lines, and we say, okay, well, this is what on average people will act like. And we started to come away from school, or at least I started to come away from school with this mindset of, okay, well, typically most people will do this, or typically most people will do that. And I found myself falling into this mindset of, well, what would the average person do? And I started to try to think like what the average person would do, in most situations, how the average person would act, how the average person would respond. And I came up with this model in my mind of what was typical. So it becomes predictable. You can start to predict certain scenarios and situations. I think his book was trying to get us to focus on the fact that not everybody thinks that way. That's a more a mechanical thought process, and that we should be looking. That's the irrational portion of the book, and that we should be stepping back and then looking at situations and comparing them. He did this really interesting concept with relativity. Everything is relative to something else. So when you've got multiple choices, he took the statistical analytics of how people make decisions, and then he broke down that typicalness to say, okay, let's widen, he said, make the circle of relative choices larger rather than smaller. So instead of looking at it like what people would typically do, let's step back and look at it from a standpoint of what, for you as an individual, actually makes sense, to make more of a rational decision, more so than oh, let's follow the flock because that's what everybody else does.
He went to that we like being different, and the part of like following the flock and not being seen as everybody else for sacrificing their public image to see to seem like they are different. And then you speak to those people that don't want to seem like they're doing everything else. But I feel like not that we do follow the flock as not consumers. You do kind of. So all right, Malcolm Gladwell, like he talked about using the influencers, like how Malcolm Gladwell used it in Tipping Point in the shoes or whatever to cause mayhem. Not just following the flock. I'm thinking of, you said systematic rational. I thought of those statement, the poor become poorer. Like it's a system. I like that it's a system.
It really is, and we fall into it like sheep. That's what I kept thinking about was, don't follow the flock. Don't be a sheep. I remember this episode of Law and Order where they were talking about don't be a sheep. Don't just follow the flock.
Scatter the shepherd, the flock will something. Remember
that?
that?
Follow. So I had to take every chapter of his book, and in every chapter I put in predictably irrational. So like for chapter 2, he said, the fallacy of supply and demand. I said, rethink supply relative to the relationship of demand. Now, this whole book club is supposed to be about real estate, right? So I thought about it from the standpoint of my clients and how my clients make decisions, right? The mindset in our industry prior to the NAR settlement was that real estate commissions were 6%. It was a mantra. You know what I mean? When you go and talk to clients, they tell you what the commission is. Oh yeah, your commission is 6%. You're gonna take 6%, right? 6%, 6%, 6%. My cousins in North Carolina, that's what they call. They call me up and like, yeah, you get that 6%, you get the 6%. It's a joke, you know? That is the norm that everybody falls into. But for reality, if the commissions it's really 3% and 3%, right? We don't get 6%. But they don't think like that. They think of a standpoint of the commission is 6%. So when we have to, this book made me come back and say, all right, let's step back and break down the explanation of what that is. So now my clients can make a more rational decision of what the commission structure is supposed to be versus sitting around with this mantra of the commission is 6%, 6%, 6%. The commission for myself, for my services is 3.5%. Now we can negotiate what the commissions are going to be for the buyer agent. That's the person that brings the buyer. And now we give them more detailed explanation on the buyer agency, what they do and how they actually culminate the deal in the first place. What do you want to pay that person that's actually going to bring the qualified buyer to your home? Now my consumer has an ability to go, okay, now I have an opportunity to make a more rationalized decision. That is what I think that he is really trying to say in all of this analysis, because I looked at it from a standpoint of real estate, of how decisions get made so people can make a better decision in their thought process. So they don't just become sheep and follow the herd.
So I like looking at it, the hidden forces that shape our decisions. I look like it from a conversation of dismantling the systematic conversations that's already rooted inside of you.
Yes.
What you think is expensive and what you don't think. Oh, a 50-cent aspirin is not as worth more than a $2.50 just because of the pricing. Meanwhile, they got the same effects. We buy name brand instead of store brand. Meanwhile, they might be like the same, the equivalent. It's the system that's put in place. I think that is what make you predictable, because it's a thought system that you repetitively you think that X amount is a good enough money to make a year when somebody else is like, I make that in a month. Like right.
That's not the.
But power of psycho-cybernetics was like, I love that story where the man met his threshold and then he got sick anytime like he started to make more money or something came up because it came against his system. And if he started to think about himself in a new way, it dismantled that predictability.
It's funny about this because I do this myself. Like I had to decouple myself from the flock. Like the flock will go into the supermarket and say everything is expensive, right? So now they're penny pinching and pricing
You are the shepherd. You are the shepherd.
So my mindset goes, I'm going into the supermarket and I'm not, my floor is $200, my ceiling is $300. So get whatever you're going to get as long as it falls between the floor and the ceiling of your price range. So now I'm not standing around coupon clipping. I don't walk through the supermarket with that little newspaper trying to find the bargain brands and standing around comparing bread prices, to get the cheapest bread, and I don't do any of that. My threshold is $250.
Come on.
So, you want some coffee?
No.
Oh, you good? I'm sorry. So,
morning.
I'm extremely late. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I apologize for my lateness.
Thank you.
So in that, I changed my thought pattern around about what is predictable for me,
Right.
and how I'm trying to disassociate myself from the sheep mentality.
I like that. I just like that overall because at a certain point you outgrow, like Demetrius, you outgrew some of the people that you was rocking and rolling with, and you tell your children, like, you can't, why you hanging out with Bull? You see how he talking to somebody else? Like, why you hanging out with them? And then your mindset and the conversations that you have with people, they shift.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's unpredictable, but it's also like a hidden force. I like that because sometimes you cannot see what you're coming up against, and it's like, oh, I'm better than this, I'm stronger than this. Why am I dealing with X, Y, and Z? But it's the hidden forces that shape our decisions from predictable to irrational. And I'm excited to
irrational, yes.
To irrational. And I'm just excited to get outside of the world of what people expect. Not just like black women to show up, like you see the identity, but they expect something out of you, and that's just it's a thought pattern. And I'm just in here like dismantling the conversations that we have about ourselves, which ripple out into like not just the universe, but like the people around you. You always say, I'm just here now, like breaking down the conversations of like what your parents thought was a big deal, what they think is big money compared to you don't think that. And I just like dismantling that part. So I think it's just, everything is a system. It's a system operating, and you may not know is the prison system. It's the kids to jail system. It's like,
That's in my mind from just reading this book. That's the flock. That's the mentality. Everybody comes up with this. What would Waldo do? Concept in how they move, and they follow that, and they say, okay, well, this is the norm, so I'm going to stick with the norm. But this book made me come out of that, especially when we're starting to deal with our clients. And dealing with some of our clients, they don't know anything for the most part. What they do know is what the norm is, and that's what they go by. So they use that norm as a weapon of defense in conversation with us.
Or it's self-protection.
And that's the thing that we fight against. I don't even call it a fight. We work to dismantle that norm to say, okay, that was your mother when she bought her house back in the 80s.
Yeah.
This ain't the 80s, and you not your mother.
And I think like staying in this moment, our mind can get trapped in the past, like of who you was years ago, and not that that's an illusion, but that doesn't exist. And so you anchored yourself in the 1960s. You anchored yourself when this mortgage rate was 4.25%. And like,
well, that's what everybody kind of did when they.
but that don't exist.
It doesn't
and so
exist,
then
right.
you like, buyers will say, oh, I know I'm going to have to put in multiple offers. I'm going to be disappointed. And where did that come from?
Yeah.
Like, you didn't even look at a house. Who says that you have to be disappointed? Who says that?
They already conditioned their mindset to be that, and that's what I think that he's trying to get us to realize. That's why he doesn't make any conclusions.
Yeah.
I think he's trying to get us to open our minds to realize that we don't have to follow the sheep mentality. There is no real norm, and if you want to really make better decisions, because that was one of the first things he said. He said, we're doing this in order to be able to make better decisions. How to make better decisions to achieve what you desire. So now we go back to our clients, because that's how I continue to look at this book from the perspective of what do my clients consider as normal, you know, and what's the fear? What's the fear? What's the real desire? And then how do I work through that to get help them get what they desire and get what I need in the same process.
Go ahead, Dave.
I think with this book, I personalized a lot of it because I really wanted to understand it on a higher level, right? And it opened me up to realize when he talks about the predictability, right, of individuals, a lot of it does come from the norm, as you just mentioned, the things that we consider or the things that we feel as though is normal, and those are the things that help us feel more comfortable in life. Mm-hmm. You know,
it does.
So
that's the
but
security
it's false
market.
comfort.
It's false comfort.
Yes,
exactly.
yes, it's a false reality.
False reality. Exactly.
You know, yes,
it is.
But the thing is, it becomes predictable because we have seen the pattern over and over and over and over again.
Yes.
You know, and it also become irrational because at the end of the day, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again,
right,
expecting different results. So that also applies on the other side. When you keep seeing the same thing at the end of the day and not accepting the fact that I've seen this before. I've seen this 4, 5, 6 different times, but yet you're expecting something different.
Yeah, that
it's
was
like
chapter 9. Yes.
Living in a dream world. I know that this is like you said, oh, this is real estate, but it's deeper than it's deeper than rap. You know, it's when Dave Chappelle and X said you was in my dream. When are we gonna wake up out of this cycle?
I don't think any of them will. I mean, it's the Matrix. How do you bring everybody out of the
Oh,
Matrix?
I love it.
Don't you love it?
I love the Matrix.
Give them the pills. Give them the pills.
You got the red pill and the blue pill.
He said, why do your eyes
Which one are you going for?
I mean, they gotta want it though. They have to want it.
They have to want it.
Like we want this. You
right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And not everyone, when you give them a choice, they don't choose the same option.
No, they don't.
You know, some people
we have to
choose
peel
to
that
stay
out
asleep.
of them. No, some of that we have to. That's our consultation. We have to peel some of that out of them to inspire that desire, get them to rethink the whole process, and get away from some of what they consider as the norms. To break away from that predictable, irrational decision process that they were making in the first place.
But see, I think that, and you're absolutely correct, and that's one of the things that I enjoyed about this book as well, because it also made me realize that the mindset and the things that we apply to our clients is also applicable to us.
It is.
You know, sometimes we might need to call up that therapist and say, I need a session. You know?
You know when I wound up doing seeing this effect on me is when I go to make large purchases. Like when I had to go when I bought my iMac. Mm-hmm. I went in the store with the mindset of I want the best iMac for what I can afford. Mm-hmm. This was my budget. This is what I wanted. I wanted all the bells and whistles. I only had $1,500, so they better take this and get me. So I got everything that I wanted with all the bells and whistles, and I spent like $1,300. But my mind was, when you walked in the store, they gave you all the options. You can get this one for $8.99, and this is all the stuff that it does. Or you can get this one for $12.99, and this is all the stuff that it does. Or you can get this one for $1,600, and this is all the extra stuff that it does. You know what I mean? So I had to find I said, what's normal? What's predictable? What do I need for myself? You know what I mean? In this decision-making process. I do this. I'm guilty of it. Mostly, and we all have been, most of it has become from advertising. Advertising tells us what's normal. Remember, cigarette ads were normal on televisions, and you see people smoking in movies, and you're like, all right, well, it's normal to smoke because everybody else is smoking on television and commercials, so let's smoke.
Oh my goodness.
You follow the herd.
Or like hamburgers, you know, like with
McDonald's was this.
But not just I love, like, at a certain point you ain't have the calories. You ain't have, like, this is sugar, this is how much potassium,
right,
and you ain't had the nutritional ingredients. And now
you got more information to be able to make better decisions.
Now I'm eating like hamburgers with like lettuce, and I'm just like, I'm not like hating carbs or anything, but like, behold, I'm doing something new. I wasn't someone like, give me my bun, you know, and now I'm just like, you know, lettuce and.
Now they give you lettuce now, but now they give you the chicken versus the ground beef. So now you got options. They give you sandwiches without bacon. Ooh. So now you've got options.
Now we doing tofu, but like when you know more, better
choices, better decisions.
Yeah.
And that's what he's been. That was the first thing.
But you had to like, this something like it broke a system of like not just like fried chicken, and I'm going to get the seafood bag, you know, and now I'm going to Kava. I'm not doing no advertisement, but like we're eating different because our mental system is like what's happening internally.
Right.
This
I think that's what he opened me up to realize and understand. I mean, it's something that for me I've always done. Even like agents, it's funny. What do when agents first come to a new office, what's the first thing you want to know?
About desk fees.
Desk fees and splits.
Yeah.
It's the first thing that they want to know about. What did I say to you when you came? I said, don't focus on that. That's the wrong thing to focus on. I said the right thing to focus on is volume. Yeah. If you make enough money, the fees don't matter. It's cost of doing business. Mm-hmm. So focus on that number versus the nickels and the pennies.
Or what it looks like.
Right.
You come in here and what it look. Oh, I got this. I got this. This is what it looks like on the outside. But what's happening internally?
That's where they lose it. That's
or
where,
it's just like
the boy that said to us at the Wawa, you're tired of paying all the fees, and I'm looking at him like, how much money you making? Mm-hmm. How much money are you really?
But see, and that's what he talks about, because he even mentions the different experiments that he did. Like, for example, with the chocolate, you know, where he offered the
the different chocolate.
When he offered the same quality of chocolate. The one when he offered the same quality of chocolate with the
kids,
lesser
the
quality of candy.
Oh no, the other chocolate. Right. Okay.
So he did the experiment where you can pay for this the cheaper piece of candy and get the piece of chocolate for free, or you can pay for the chocolate and then you get the other piece of candy for free, right? Mm-hmm. And he realized that the most people, they went for paying for the less quality piece of candy just to get the free piece of chocolate, because in their mind the chocolate was the win-win situation.
Yeah.
All right.
And the wordplay.
So
free.
You want my real opinion on his book, and I'm gonna just put it out there. I just think his experience was just effing with people.
Yeah.
I really just think that his experience was just effing with people. Like the thing he did with the kids and the candy, he did the same thing with the kids and the candy. Like trick or treat Halloween, and they would come to the door, and like he said, for fun, he used to just say, kids would say trick or treat, and he would just say trick, just to see if they had a trick in mind, or did they just come for the kid, for the treat.
They just came for the treat.
Right. But then he did this other thing with the kids where he goes, if you give me 2 pieces of your candy, I'll give you this bigger candy bar. And then the kids were standing around like, and now I'm getting the trick as the kid. And the kids are standing there trying to make this life-changing decision over some candy. I'm like, all your experiments are just messing with people, just to see how they think, how they react, how they maneuver, and then analyzing all of their decision-making processes.
Although I agree with you to a degree, at the end of the day, I think that all of his experiments actually expose the state of mind that he was actually trying. The point he was getting to is the state of mind of individuals. It's not necessarily anything else, and it wasn't really. It was. I think he came up with those experiments, for multiple reasons. It was fun. And it was less intrusive. It was less invasive. It was just something that could just be put right there on the table. Boom. Which one you gonna choose? You gonna go with he'll put something small right there and then something big right there.
Right.
And he'll put like the wine test. He put a higher price. He said this was a higher vintage, more expensive wine. And this right here was a lesser quality, cheaper wine. Right? But it was the same exact wine.
It's the same exact wine. But they did that same experiment with the people that with the Payless shoes. Did you see it where they put the Payless shoes in this really high-end expensive store and all the bougie people came in on Rodeo Drive and was buying these shoes at ultra high prices, and after they paid for them, the people would say, oh yeah, these shoes are from Payless. And they were like, huh? Payless. And they would be standing around talking about the shoes. Oh, this is a high quality shoe, and it's got this, blah, 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 that, and this. And then they go, where did you get the shoe from? Payless.
I just love how he is revealing the structures, like what you think is expensive and what not. Because I look at some of these shoes, I don't like when I feel like my feet are just walking on the ground. And it could be like a $350 shoe, but it don't have no soul, right? And I get it. To me, that's a $20 shoe, but they gonna sell it for $350 because the name, the markup, yada yada. But nowhere, I don't like when Jesus walks. Remember, that was I feel like I'm walking on the ground no matter where. So I think he's just revealing the not just idioticness about numbers and value and dismantling. So the trick for us is just to dismantle all of
that
and then see it in reality, because we can read it, but then it's to practice none of this matters.
How we do this on a daily basis. One of the things he talked about was the ownership effect. We overvalue things simply because we own it. Yeah. I'm negotiating with a lady now that I've been negotiating with for the last 4 years about how much her house is worth. And she thinks it's worth some ridiculous amount of money because of where it is. And I keep saying to her, lady, your third floor is falling into your second floor. Your railings don't have, the steps don't have any railings to go upstairs to the third floor. You haven't been to the third floor in years.
Irrational.
I'm like,
irrational.
But you think it's worth because you live there and that's where y'all had Thanksgiving at. You don't even celebrate Thanksgiving anymore. You're a Muslim now. What do you care about Thanksgiving?
Cut it out.
Respect your religion.
This is the conversation I've been having with this lady for the last 4 years. I call her almost religiously once a month.
That's the predictability, right?
No, that's the irrational ability.
Well, I'm talking about with her.
Right.
With her, you understand what is going on. You understand the situation inside out. But however, she don't. She's incapable.
It's a system that is blocking her from seeing how. So we're not faulting the person, but we're faulting the system that you're speaking to that has her trapped inside of that.
In this maze of unrealistic, irrational
thinking.
Your other client, the man that wouldn't go inside of his son that passed. You're not talking to that man. You're talking to the wounded person that's inside of him.
Yes, the pain.
You're talking to his pain that anchors him inside of 1980, November 20th.
Yes.
When my son died, that's where he is. Yeah. He's not right here.
Yeah. So now, with this book, I look at how to decouple him from that.
Right.
How to, I'm telling you, we're not just real estate agents here, people. We're freaking therapists. Because now I have to sit down with him
and you're right, because I need one too.
Dissect him. You know what I mean? And help him to disconnect himself. The house is not your son. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The house is where your son lived. It was the last house that he lived in, but the house is not your son. Now the son lives within you now. You know what I mean? So let's let the house go. You know what I mean? and move on.
So I think mainly at the root for anybody, what they're looking for on this whatever journey is freedom and peace.
Freedom and peace.
Because you see like the not the celebrities, but then they die of overdose. You know, like it's not like at the money after a certain point. People coming from houses because, like your daughter, she needed her basement to stop flooding. She needed freedom. She needed peace inside of whatever she was looking for. That client with the son, he needs freedom from the past. You know, he needs peace in his present moment. I think that's what we're talking about, not just the sticks and bricks and how much this costs, is just speaking to the freedom and the peace. So how can we do, I don't know, because we can do the work with our clients in the hour and hour and a half with them, but then they're going to go back to their system because it's predictable.
Yeah, that's the thing you have to kind of get them out of, you know.
But is it our responsibility? I'm just a shepherd. I only got you for an hour and a half, and then you gonna go back.
You got them from now to the settlement table. You got to get them to this table, and that's you got to sometimes you got to put them on your back and be like, "Come on, John, let's go.
Yeah.
We're going together here to the settlement table." Yeah. Some people you really have to pick up and drag. I mean, he talked about social versus market norms, and I think about what's getting ready to come up, which is Black Friday. And do you remember how people acted before COVID on Black Friday?
Yeah.
Where they were in stores and literally fist fighting over televisions?
Yeah.
But it's like, it's so great that you don't even watch the TV.
You don't even want to, I'm so down to low watching television right now, it's not even funny. But I just think about this, of how people normally act under different market conditions. Like, I'm one of those last minute Christmas shoppers. The only thing I do early is put up the tree. Everything else, I can wait. You know, I'll go to a store, I have my list together, I know everybody I'm getting something for, and then I search for whatever is there that fits that particular person. My wife, on the other hand, she has a list of, I want to get this for this person, and this for this person, and this for this person. So she wants to go to the store early because in her mind, I got to get there before everything gets picked over and it's gone. So we got two different mindsets going into this.
And it's set.
It's set.
It is that mind, because what if you didn't do Christmas? Your whole internal system will be like shook because I've been doing this for X amount of years. I've been practicing this thought pattern for X.
Oh my God, it becomes a whole thing of, this is her mantra, this is why I wanted to go early.
And then she probably says that year after year after year.
And I'm like, well, what's early? Like, what's early?
Because
like, we could have gone Christmas shopping in August.
Right.
And got nothing out the way in August. We didn't have to wait until 'tis the season to go if you wanted to get something for somebody.
Because we might as well say it's two catches to that. It's like, again, I refer to the chapter where he did the test with the students, where they set deadlines, and then those who didn't have a deadline, he gave some of them deadlines, right? Yeah. For them to turn in their paperwork. Right. And then the other ones, he didn't give them any deadline. Okay. And then he let the ones in the middle choose their deadline. And he mentioned how the ones who had the deadline turned it in, the paperwork was done, it was an excellent job, yada, 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 right? The ones who chose their deadline, they waited to the last minute, and as their deadline approached and they turned in the paperwork, they rushed it. Yeah, and then the ones who didn't have any deadline, their situation was even twice as worse.
Right. There was no sense of urgency or time for them. So the work suffered as a result.
Yeah, exactly.
The work suffered as a result.
They didn't do their best job. So those who wait till the last minute to go shopping, sometimes, like those who go early, right? Those who go early, they feel like they can get the best, they can get everything that's available, but they don't want to go too early. Why? Because some of the bills aren't on the table yet.
Some of the deals aren't on the table.
You know?
Yeah, that's what they're looking for.
Exactly.
I got to get the deal. That's the conditioning that forces us into that herd
Exactly.
mentality,
As he talked about
and
as
becoming
well.
sheep. It's, I swear he keeps going. The book brings me back to the same thing: how to make better decisions.
Yes.
Or like it brings me to like, why does the mind get what it expects?
Well, where does the expectations come from? That's the thing that's created. That's the herd mentality. Everybody else expects A, B, C, X, Y, Z, whatever the expectation is, whatever the topic is.
So where does the expectation come from you?
Where does the expectations come from me?
Yeah.
I only have expectations for myself.
But where do they come from?
My own personal desire to do, be, act, what makes me feel.
But where does this desire come from?
I mean, it's still the origins. I mean, you can go back to the origins of the ego, but
We shouldn't be coming from the ego. How about you, Demetrius?
where do yours come from?
The source!
What's the source?
Greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. It can't come from the ego.
Go, D.
Well, first and foremost, I believe he made a major point when he touched on that our decisions are almost driven by our emotion.
There it is.
So the emotions that we have, they are attached because the mind and the heart is attached. Think about so when someone fears something, how do they react? How do they respond?
Right.
When someone loves something, how
They
do
want
they
the
respond?
whoopings.
Yes.
Or they gonna run.
Yeah.
Right, fight or flight.
And without that emotion, there's no reaction.
Mm-hmm.
When a person don't care about
That
something.
might not
You're a
be-
psychopath
That
if
might
you
not
have
be
that.
the best decision.
It
And
may
that's
not
what
be.
Right, that's what he's highlighting in the book.
Right.
How to make better decisions.
So he says to put certain things in place in order to help you make better decisions. Just like when he talked about the person who stayed up late knowing they made bad decisions, but they online shopping late at night, right? And he said, no, he said, stop, switch that up and start shopping in the morning.
That's funny about
when you make
the
better
whole
decisions.
fight or flight thing.
Yes.
Remember days on South Street?
Oh, of course.
On Friday nights on South Street, and everybody started running for no apparent reason whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is foolish.
So they seen other people running.
They seen other people running. My mindset was, I got against the wall, and whatever came my way was getting clocked. That was my mindset. You know what I mean? But I had to get out of thinking, if the crowd is running, I'm running.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the better decision for me was find a wall, post up, and whatever come in your
Put
direction.
your back against the wall.
Right.
Observe.
It's burn the ships.
Burn
Because if
ships.
you coming at me, we all going down together.
It's emotional intelligence. I like that. I love emotional intelligence because was like bring healing to my amygdala, bring healing to my like neural context, because my amygdala is rooted in patterns that was passed down through my DNA. Like, so if my mom was carrying me and she was worried and then anxiety, that's in my bloodline too, through the umbilical cord, because you're passing that blood is surging, and that was in me. Anytime something happened, it's surging. So you think that, I think like that's kind of at the root, not just beyond the desire, because where do I get the desire from? Social, my parents, whatever, like, I don't, But
that's
good.
but those are a combination of the things that are helping us to make more rational decisions, because now we've stopped, we've contemplated the options, and now we're able to make decisions based off of what we desire, what we want, what makes the most sense. He talked about procrastination and self-control.
Yep.
And how to weigh predictably irrational decisions between the procrastinator and the self-control. I know I have the procrastinator gene in me. So everybody does. So I said, don't fight against the procrastinator. Find a space for the procrastinator within me to exist. Feed it so you can go on and do the things that you have to do.
Give them purpose.
Right. You
Or
give him a
like-
voice. You give him, you know what I'm saying?
Or combine your favorite atomic habit, like create a structure. And I'm going to procrastinate toward this, but if I put in my calendar Friday at 2 p.m. This is what I'm going to handle. I'm not saying that it's like 100%, but it's like 60% more getting there. And if my relationship to my word is that I'm going to do this Friday at 2 p.m., if I have a dynamic relationship to my word, then it's going to get done Friday at 2 p.m. because that's what I said.
Right. That's what I'm liking. And that's I think that's one of the themes that I got out of this book. I wasn't crazy about it. I wasn't crazy about this book.
I'm crazy about the conversation.
Well, because it's
Always,
us, and
right.
I enjoy our conversations.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the best book to me.
I think
go ahead.
In combination, like I heard the Prince, because the Prince was like, you're always at war. The Prince grew up to be at war, and he's fighting hereditary forces. Like, he's always at war. And I think that always the citadel is your mind. Like, whoever controls the mind.
Yes.
Like, the marketers, they got us in.
Yeah.
What did you talk? November, Black Friday. If that's something, like, some people really get into Black Friday. Some people don't care about Black Friday. But whoever controls the brain, I feel like you're the winner.
You won.
And I love like where you're at with the sheep and the flock. Like what? Like you're not always there, shepherd, with your rod, you know. But like today, you're definitely like mastering the herd.
But I think we have to in order to give us that some peace.
I think in that is like that was a law: strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. I think law from 40 Laws of Power. It is also a verb.
That's your favorite book, girl.
You know what? Like that book, I was like on it the other day. Formlessness, like
get my notes are hanging up.
It's a disaster, and I was like, remember? I don't know if we briefly had this conversation, but that book is a little not demonic, but like it's really like
yes, it is. That's why I said. Remember, I said we should burn this book after we read it because nobody should have this book. Nobody needs to know all of this.
Oh my goodness!
Nobody should know all of this information
why
in
am
one
I
book.
eating this up right now? You know, like what about me loves this? Like is that the evil in me?
Well,
like you know,
both sides.
You gotta feed
both sides. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Assume to be a friend, but act as a
spy. It's a necessary evil. Okay, it's a necessary evil.
Like it brings me back to like power versus force because I'm like I'm afraid of my own power. We don't
look at the struggle. There's the struggle.
That is the struggle. You saying the struggle within me? Yeah, it is. I sent like y'all in a group chat like a verse. It was something like we are afraid of our own light.
Yeah, greatness and light. Yes.
Because we fear that people are going to like take advantage of us. This is something, but that's what your light is for so you can give it to the world. Like you know when you go into the supermarket and like. Not that you're afraid of it, you kind of love, pride, gloat that people swarm you, but that's what you love.
It happens for real.
But that's what our light is for people to consume us. But we be like, back up because like people will probably, I feel like they want to ask me for my autograph sometime. That's why I carry a pen in my bag. But like I'd be like, yo, leave me alone a little bit.
That's what I leave me alone a lot.
Like I need bodyguards.
Yes.
At this point.
I wish I could bring the dog to the supermarket.
Oh my goodness. You like that too because you're projecting. You're saying that you're not me. Like I'm separate. No, you're not.
It's not that I'm separate. I just don't. I don't mind. I love people. You know. I don't necessarily love a lot of attention. I really don't. I don't mind it as long as I can blend in. You see what I'm saying? As long as I'm not on stage, all separate by myself, and all the attention is on me, I'm not comfortable in those type of situations.
But that's predictable.
Yes,
it is
because that's not really
and
you.
That's the sheep. That's you blending in with the sheep.
Because that's a version of you, but that doesn't make you that complete whole of Demetrius. A part of you in your dream, which you block, is being the man on the stage, which you totally can be, but you don't let yourself see yourself in that way for whatever reason because there's a system there, whatever thought pattern which you deem to be true, but it's only true for you.
Well, I think it's probably there because inwardly at times I feel incomplete. There's things that I need to accomplish before that day comes. You know, and then once I feel accomplished, and there are just goals, you know, they are just my own personal goals, right? Life goals, that once I've accomplished those goals, then I don't mind it.
Yeah,
but then that's
what
the
did
story.
cybernetics say?
What did it say?
It said, be happy in the moment you're in. It said, find the peace and enjoyment within and live from that perspective. Not the, when I get to this point, then I'll be happy. Or when I get to this point, I'll be satisfied.
Well, see, that ain't about happiness. Well, what I was just mentioning about the attention, it's not even about happiness for me, because I'm happy as I am.
The conversation,
Right,
the basis,
Yeah,
the basis of the conversation is time.
it is.
It is, because it lives somewhere. Good for
Right, 'cause
you for
nobody
accepting.
nobody knows when.
Yeah.
Nobody knows the hour nor the time.
Nobody knows.
Right.
And it's not like we can read another book. It's not like how when I get my PhD.
Yeah, then all of a sudden I'm gonna be on stage.
No. But it takes something, like, because it's a way that you've been thinking, and it's good to get it on the court so you can dismantle it. That conversation is not real. It's just you've been practicing that thought. It's a predictable thought, and it's a hidden force that shapes your decision making. So then, what if? Live in the possibility of what if I was perfect, whole, and complete? How would I show up? And then live. But you gotta be there every single moment. Remind yourself. Create a structure. Like, what if everything that I wanted I already have?
So now, from this book, I keep going back because I really had to look at this from the standpoint of my career, from what we do as agents, and then relate this back to our clients and many of the conversations that we're already having with our clients. I think about the conversation that you were telling me about that one client who wasn't ready to buy, and they gave you all the reasons under the
They're
sun.
so justified.
Why they
You're
were
so right
I mean,
about
they
it.
had this reason on top of reason on top of reason on top of reason on top of reason, and I'm like, I don't even know how to help you dismantle all of those reasons about why you can't buy, but you could tell me why you could rent.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, people have layers. Like they have a layer of a layer of a layer, and we're just trying to get back to the root. Like,
Yes.
But how can
How
I
do
do
you
that in
decide
an
to
hour and a
dissect
half?
that?
I'm
Yes.
good, but like, just like after
I am the shit.
I'm really good, you know. But then after I leave, you gonna put it back up,
Yeah,
right?
you
You
gonna
gonna put it back up.
It's honestly, it's crazy, right? Because I'm gonna use something that is off topic, but it's related because it's very, very similar. Like in learning a different language, learning Arabic, right? We have 2-hour classes, 1 day a week, or sometimes we have an hour class 2 days a week, right?
Yeah.
And literally, some people advance a lot faster than others. However, my point is that the ones who seem to advance a lot faster are individuals who are studious, for one, and then for two, they don't have a lot of obstacles that are preventing them from, when they leave the class, going home, sitting down for another 2.5, 3, 4 hours, or however long they sit down, to review and to move on and to, increase, right? While others only study when they're in the class. That's the only time they're going over the Arabic. Right. But when they leave, they got to go to work, they play with the kids, they running around, doing this, doing that, watching, binge watching the TV shows and doing everything in the world other than reviewing the work and then going to the next chapter to try to help prepare for the next class.
Right.
So in that situation, I start looking at people, because I've been through this for so many years, right? And being a barber, it also helped you determine these same factors. I start looking at people, I don't just see the issues, the rejection, the denial, the obstacles. I start realizing, sometimes I put myself in their shoes, and I start realizing that the roadblocks are there for a reason. It's not just what they're telling you, there are other things that are behind that, and sometimes it's our job to get to it. Other times, we are completely so far away from it. It don't make any sense.
Yeah, that's the That's the evaluation that I do when I have my client consultations, to see how far away or how close we are to the same path and same pageness.
Yeah.
You know, when I start digging for motivation and listening for the roadblocks that's preventing them, is it a lot of roadblocks or is it a few roadblocks? I got one guy who, I called him up, he said, I want to sell my house. Okay, well, before I sell my house, I have to put it back together because structurally it's falling down. Okay, well, where are you in the process? Oh, well, I got to call the adjuster to come out. I was like, oh, you in the beginning. You talking about calling the adjuster. But then I called him back a couple of weeks later. He still hadn't called the adjuster, and then I find out that the house isn't really in his name. This is the state. So now it's a family member's house. I'm like, so do you even have authorization to do work on this house? Oh, well, I'm gonna need an attorney. Oh, okay. Here, I'm gonna send you somebody, and then I'm gonna get back to you every 3 months and follow up. You gotta really we do that in our analysis. A lot of this stuff we already do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A lot of this dismantling and trying to separate people from the herd mentality, the 6%, and what the whole process is like about selling homes or the process about buying homes. Oh yeah, my uncle told me he bought a house 18 years ago and this what happened. No, dog, that was 18 years ago. And you wasn't even with your uncle then. So you have no idea. He told me he only spent $50. No, shut up.
Yeah. I had somebody say to me the other day, man, do they still got dollar houses?
Bye. Next.
I ain't even gonna have this conversation with you.
Next.
Yeah, they probably still got dollar houses, but they probably not here. I don't know, you know? But yeah.
We have to dismantle that herd mentality. And sometimes it's a slither, and sometimes it's a big giant slice that we have to cut off. It's like surgery.
Yeah.
What was the book that we read from the author who was a
Psychodynamics.
that he was a plastic surgeon?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he said, I can give you a new nose, but it ain't the nose.
Right.
Man, with some people, he was like, man, that he performed the surgery, they still had the same mentality. It was still, you know, they still seeing themselves as being ugly, although he beautified them. He gave them what they asked for.
Right.
He done the work. It was impeccable. But however, they still was the, what do you call them? The ugly, was it the ugly duckling?
I think so, yeah.
So they still had the ugly duckling mentality.
All right, it's 8:52, so I gotta ask at this point in the book club. Compare and contrast this book to another
Comparing
book.
to The Psychology of Money.
The Psychology of Money.
Because what is like ringing loud for me is wealth is what you don't see. And there's a lot of hidden forces that are operating in the back that like orchestrates your day. And you don't, sometimes people don't know why they're making these decisions. They can tell you something and then give you all the reasons why.
Yes.
And you don't see that you're operating inside of a pattern. You didn't create that pattern.
Right, you just jumped into it.
And sometimes from Demetrius' story, it's the environment that plays a part because some people don't have the kids. I can be in this studious environment 24 because I don't have all those other obstacles playing against me. So I think that we are so powerful, but there's stuff that you don't see. So it's not just wealth. It's like wealth is what you don't see. Joy is what you don't see. There's a lot of stuff that you don't see that are orchestrating the way that you show up.
Yeah.
D?
I felt two different things. The compound effect. Because as he continued to go from chapter to chapter, piling up how these things play a role in the mentality of each and every individual, you know? And it just was so, I called you and told you, I was frustrated with that.
I told you.
Yeah, because I personalized all of it because it was so relatable.
Yeah.
You know, and I made so many. You know, and I ain't even gonna lie. It was so many decisions that I made that when he just as he went from chapter to chapter and was just talking about how you got caught up in this circle, this big system that we have.
Yes.
Yeah. And you still caught up.
You're still caught up in it.
You know, and it's like now, how do I get free? What pill do I take? I'm in the matrix right now.
Amen.
What pill am I going to take?
Amen.
You know, and at the end of the day, I know I'm tired of sleeping.
Hey!
Shit. Oh, wow. Ooh, church!
Yeah. So that's for me.
So I compared this to Sell Like Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Because I saw all of the different ways that I could utilize marketing on people who don't act rationally, right? And then combine my marketing forces to speak to that audience. But then I saw 48 Laws of Power, because now I can see the sheep and how to manipulate the sheep. Now I'm the sheep herder. And now I can use all the little tools from 48 Laws of Power to manipulate the sheep, because they do act predictable. And now he's bought a, what's the glass called? A magnifying glass to the masses for me that I can use to review them through now. So now I'm the master manipulator now. You know what I mean? Because now not only do I understand my own irrational predictability, but now I understand everybody else's predictableness and how they normally think.
Yes.
And then how to use that normal thinkingness to manipulate them. Bad, probably.
But I would say that the way you, from listening to what you're saying, that your tactic of manipulation is to, because sometimes you gotta help people again. You know, you gotta protect people from the evil or the harm within. You know,
gotta protect them from themselves.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I literally had to tell somebody the other day. I said it's sad that us as parents, right? We as parents, sometimes our whole objective is to protect our children from the harms outside. But if you notice, a lot of children are harmed from the harms within. You.
Yeah.
You know? So you have to protect them from both. You know, that's your job. That's your responsibility. Stop looking outside and start looking within as well. Because if you don't, you're going to cause more harm on your children than anyone else. Period. Why? Because you protected them from all that out there. But you expose them to what the very harms that was right there the whole time.
So this has been a very interesting book club. I wasn't crazy about the book, and I don't know if anybody else was.
I was crazy
about it. You got something. That's good.
Yes.
I'm glad.
I'm glad. Yeah.
I'm glad you made it to book club.
Because I told you, it exposed me to the exposed me to the foolishness. You understand what I'm saying?
You use the word insanity. Like some I love that. Like insane.
And it's sad because I mean, I know all of us here are familiar with the reality of doing things over and over and over again. They come from two different roots. And the two words in the dictionary that they use, one is insanity. Einstein used that one, right? However, the other word is stupidity.
I'm going to go with it. I like the word insanity.
I like insanity too, right? But listen, stupidity, only reason why I even utilize stupidity is because this is a word, right? Insanity, someone being insane, a lot of people feel like, all right, no matter how crazy their behavior may be, how irrational their behavior may be, they don't feel like they are touched with a little bit of insanity.
Well, they are, and that's what makes their decision making.
But they don't accept it. They don't accept it. So, however,
but it's your ego. But it's your ego that don't let you accept it because they're creating from a place of like egotism. That root is false. That's a faulty ground. You created your ego.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
they I think they look at I think it's pretty I think it's situational based because people are for the most part like rocks. They don't move until an external force is moved upon them. You know what I mean? Like look at your renters.
Yeah.
They don't know it's time to move until the landlord sends them a notice of, yo,
Yeah, I
your
need
rent
y'all to
going up.
yeah.
Your rent going up.
And I need
in
y'all to,
2
I
months.
need y'all to vacate.
And now all of a sudden they're like, oh, I got to get up out of this mug right now. There has to be some kind of force that acts on them in order to put them in a situation of this or that. And now they've got a choice to make. Do I rent or do I buy? Or do I move back home with my parents? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in that's when their decisions become irrational and predictable.
Yeah, the psychology.
Right.
It completely changes.
It completely changes. So I love that he looked at it not from an economic standpoint. So
Right.
he didn't put it together from a standpoint of economically, people normally do this. He looked at it from a psychological standpoint, from
All
a
day long.
behavioral standpoint
All
of
day long.
how to make better decisions. How to review it and then how to make better decisions.
And I love how the way he formulated everything. It gave you gave you the problem and the solution.
He gave you. I don't know if he gave you a solution. I think he just gave you.
When you
He
look at
highlighted the problem and then we created a solution on our own. It's not.